This is the murder of Kristin Smart. So there's predators out there who sadly prey on those who are in a vulnerable position, maybe out somewhere alone and under the influence of alcohol or maybe even drugs. Rather than seeing them as someone that needs help, as most people would, most sound-minded, good people would, a predator can look at the very same situation and see reduced resistance, fewer witnesses, impaired memory, and an opportunity to isolate them. There's also a social element that predators can use to their advantage while out at a party, a bar, or a gathering, where someone is drinking alcohol. And it might not look alarming when a person steps forward and says, "I'll walk her home, I'll take care of her," because these words can also sound protective and helpful. And this might just be a ploy to separate an impaired person from the rest of the group. Predators don't always drag their victims away kicking and screaming. Sometimes they simply position themselves as a person who's willing to help, while everyone else just assumes that the help is being given in good faith. So 19-year-old Kristin Smart had been a freshman at California Polytechnic State University, otherwise known as Cal Poly, when she suddenly vanished after attending an off-campus party over Memorial Day weekend of 1996. Despite the passage of nearly 30 years, Kristin has never been found, I should say at this point in time, we've passed 30 years. So she has never been found. Her body has never been found. As the days started to stretch into months and there was still no sign of Kristin, no word from Kristin, her loved ones remained torn apart by the thoughts of what may have happened to her, where she could possibly be. Because when you don't have the answers to a question and to a mystery, your mind can spin in every which way.
A billion different directions. And you're trying to start with like the best thing, maybe she just went here or there, but then it's like, oh no, what could have possibly happened?
Right. Although everyone believed that they knew exactly who was responsible for her disappearance and presumed murder, it took 25 long years to put the pieces of the puzzle together, making Kristin's last moments clear. So Kristin Denise Smart was born in Augsburg, Bavaria, West Germany, on February 20th, 1977, to parents Stan and Denise Smart. They educated children of American military members in Germany. She had two younger siblings. She had a brother named Matt and a sister named Lindsay. When Kristin was a child, she and her family relocated to Stockton, California, and moving forward to 1995, she graduated from Stockton Lincoln High School. She was exceptionally close with her family, and if there was ever a squabble between herself and her siblings, she quickly came up with this fun new action plan to just get them all back on the same page and the family moving together in harmony. Although she may have seemed shy on the outside when you initially met her, she had this deep inner confidence that allowed her to pursue any ambition that she might have. She was quite the planner, and she always loved her family vacations. She loved taking new adventures and seeing the world. During the summer of her sophomore year of high school, she stayed just outside of London, and then the following summer, Kristin traveled to Venezuela as an exchange student, because it was her goal to become fluent in Spanish.
And that'd be something tough, like leaving your family. I give a lot of credit to foreign exchange students. That's just something, and it sounds like a girl is really after it.
It's scary to leave the comfort of your little safety net, your little bubble, and go to a country that you're not familiar with. You don't know anyone else there. That takes a lot of courage, like Mike said. So at 6'1", with long blonde hair, brown eyes, and a vibrant smile, Kristin was really impossible to miss. She was an athletic girl. She loved to play volleyball. She swam competitively. She loved poetry, sharing inspirational quotes, and making her family and friends laugh by telling jokes. During her last summer on Earth, Kristin had her dream job working as a lifeguard and camp counselor at Camp Mokuleia in Hawaii before she enrolled at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo in California in the fall of 1995 as a communications major. So she kept herself really busy on campus, and it's impressive that she was working as a freshman, because I know Mike and I worked, I think, moving our sophomore year forward at college. Yeah. But freshman year, you're usually trying to get your bearings, see what it's all about, but not Kristin. She jumped right into school and working. She was working as a lifeguard at the university's rec center while living in the dorms at Muir Hall. She was often in touch with her family. They were just under 4 hours south of where she was going to school. So she kept in touch with them, letting them know what was going on campus. Of course, this is only 1996. So it's not like the internet was very prevalent at this point in time. On Friday night, May 24th, 1996, Kristin and her friend, who was also her next door neighbor in the dorms, this is Margarita Campos, they went to a party together. And I guess it was kind of a bust. It was a lame event. There's like people sitting around the room playing video games, and they're like, okay, let's get out of here. So Kristin wanted to stay out, but Margarita said, I'm ready to call it a night and I want to go back to the dorms. So since Kristin didn't have her keys with her to get back into Muir Hall, because of course they went out together, they were assuming they were going to come back together, Margarita handed her keys over. I assume she was with somebody else that had another set of keys. And it was no big deal to Margarita. She just planned to get them back from Kristin the next morning. So as she headed back, she indicated that Kristin was absolutely sober at this point in time. So from here, Kristin went to an off-campus party on her own at 135, Crandall Way at a privately owned house that was rented by Cal Poly students, and it wasn't far from campus. The party was a birthday celebration for one of the home's renters. When some of the party goers were heading home somewhere around 2 a.m., they said that they saw Kristin passed out and she was lying face down to the left of the driveway.
Jeez, it's college days.
Of course. So when freshman Cheryl Anderson left, she noticed that there were some people around Kristin. They were trying to get her up. And since Cheryl knew exactly where Kristin lived, she said, I'll walk her back to the dorms. So as they were getting her on her feet, all of a sudden this fellow freshman at the party, this is 19-year-old Paul Flores, he jumped in to say he also knew where Kristin lived. So he said, I'll walk with you guys. According to Cheryl, as they made their way, Paul put his arm around Kristin's waist and put her arm around his neck. So although he continued to tell Cheryl over and over, oh, you can go ahead because we're going too slow.
Yeah.
Because of course Kristin is inebriated or intoxicated, so she's struggling to walk. And Cheryl's just getting this feeling he's trying to get rid of her.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's what a lot of little scumbags are going to try to do. She's wasted and I can have my way.
So she's like, no, it's fine. I'm going to walk with you.
Yeah, we're good. I'm trying to get her back home. We're good.
So once they reached the corner of Grand Avenue and Perimeter Road, where Paul lived in room 128 in Santa Lucia Hall, Cheryl was like, okay, Paul, so you're good. You've got this. Because they were close to Kristin's dorm as well. Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, we're right here. It's fine. So as she's getting ready to walk away, Cheryl said that Paul asked her for a kiss and also a hug.
Yeah, asked Cheryl for a kiss. And a hug.
Paul did.
Okay, so he's definitely horned up.
And you can also, think back to people such as this, where it's like, can I get a kiss? It's like, no, asshole, you can't get a kiss. Mm-hmm. So she declined both of these requests. And again, she's, getting assurance from him. So Kristin's dorm's about 40 yards away. You're going to walk her back? Yep, all is good.
Damn it. Why did Cheryl leave? That's...
Because no one thinks a 19-year-old is capable of doing something so terrible.
Well, right, but we're thinking sexual assault probably at this point.
I think, it's 2 a.m. You just don't think
you're drunk.
Something bad is going to happen.
You're tired. You want to hit your bed. Yeah.
But this is sadly the last time Kristin was ever seen. So when Kristin's roommates woke up on Saturday morning, May 25th, 1996, I should say her dorm mates, because I think her roommate was out of town that weekend because it's a holiday weekend and, school's not on Monday. So a lot of kids took the opportunity to go back home and see their families. So her dorm mates are knocking on Kristin's door. This is Saturday morning, May 25th, 1996.
Is it a co-ed dorm? Like boys and girls, men and women?
They didn't specifically say it must be. At least they allowed boys to be milling around the girls, but they didn't say whether or not that floor was co-ed. In our dorm, it's not like the building was co-ed. They were co-ed by floors, or all girls by floors, or all boys by floors. Yeah. I always lived on a co-ed dorm. I just never even thought anything about it. Same. So they were immediately concerned when they realized that Kristin wasn't there. She also hadn't taken her wallet or ID with her that night, because that's when Margarita was like, she doesn't have her wallet, her ID, or her keys to the dorms. So they didn't think that she left campus. But they initially told themselves, well, maybe she changed her mind and she decided to go home to her family for the long weekend after all. So 2 days later, when she still wasn't back, student Jennifer Phillips contacted the Cal Poly police to report her friend missing on Monday, May 27th, but a report wasn't started at that time. So what campus police did was they called the Smart family. So Denise Smart gets this phone call from the police that day. They're asking, is Kristin home with you? And she was very concerned because not only was Kristin not home with them, but Denise had expected her daughter to call home on Sunday just to check in like she always did. And when she didn't, she started to wonder, well, maybe she's busy.
Sure.
But now she's getting this call from the university police being told, we don't know where your daughter is.
So just so I have the timeline, the 24th was Friday.
Yes.
Then Saturday, Sunday, now we're into Monday. Okay.
And technically, Kristin was seen on Saturday morning, May 25th, but it was at like 2 in the morning. So her last known location is somewhere around 2 a.m. on Saturday, May 25th.
Got it.
And this is when Denise is learning that no one has seen Kristin since Friday night / Saturday morning. So she's feeling frantic at this point. So when the Smarts tried to file a missing persons report with local police, they were told that it was too early, while the FBI told them that the Cal Poly police were in charge. And I don't know if it was blown off because we're talking about college kids who kind of come and go like the wind.
And they're getting wasted on weekends and stuff. And like, I was just wondering how many calls they get like this every Monday. Like, oh, I can't find my friend. And then it just turns out, oh, they were at somebody's house.
They were sleeping at an apartment down the street or whatever. Because obviously college is a chaotic situation where people might be sleeping at different dorms or different places. So by the time they did begin investigating, the critical first 48 hours had long passed, and basically nearly 4 days had gone by since Kristin was last seen. According to Sheriff Ian Parkinson of the San Luis Obispo Sheriff's Office, the university police were really lacking in a lot of things. The number of investigators, as well as experience to conduct an investigation in the early stages, so that also hampered things. The 10 square miles of fields around campus were scoured for Kristin, but there was absolutely no sign of her. And for the Smart family, their fun, normal family life was flipped over on its head, and their lives have never been the same since this moment in time. In retracing Kristin's last known movements, police learned about this party on Friday night in the early morning hours of Saturday, May 25th, when Cheryl and Paul Flores were walking with Kristin. And Cheryl, of course, is telling the campus police, Paul carried on with Kristin. I left them at this intersection.
How did she know Paul's name? Was he like a friend or somebody they knew a little bit?
They were at a party together. I don't know if they had classes.
Yeah, because like if I just met some random dude and like I wouldn't know his first and last name, right?
And he's at a party, so there's a group there. So they're like, oh, it was that guy Paul Flores that walked. Yeah, so Cheryl may or may not have known him well, but other people at the party knew his name. So when he was brought in for questioning on Tuesday, May 28th, his initial statements were inconsistent in terms of exactly where he parted ways with Kristin.
This is like always the problem in these stories. Oh, I dropped her off and I hadn't seen her since then. I know that's coming at some point.
Well, that's pretty much the theme of this. So in one version, he claimed that he walked her up to her dorm in Muir Hall, but then in another, he said when they reached the fork in the road, he left her to walk back to her dorm while he walked back to his own. But according to Cheryl, they were last seen together near his dorm on Grand Avenue and Perimeter Road. Yes, they were maybe only 40 yards from Kristin's dorm, but they were also very near his dorm as well. I know on our campus, the dorms were like nestled in the same area.
Yeah, and there's no chance this guy who's asking for a hug and a kiss from Cheryl that he's not going to take her all the way back to the dorm and try to get in her dorm.
Frickin' creep.
Yeah.
So Paul would have had the room to himself that weekend because his roommate, Derek Say, had left for Oakland on Friday. He didn't come back until Tuesday. When Derek did get back, he heard the buzz around campus that Kristin was missing. So he asked Paul about it, and he said, yeah, I was at the same party as her, and I was actually the last person to have seen her. So Derek isn't connecting the dots. He's not thinking his roommate is a freaking sexual predator. Yeah, he's a weirdo, but is he a sexual deviant / murderer? So he joked, did you do something with her? And Paul laughed and said, yeah, she's at my mom's house right now. And those words can later become chilling that he said that. Although Derek never went to parties with Paul, he was aware of how he acted after a night of drinking. He was usually a lot louder and more aggressive than he normally was. Although he didn't notice anything out of the ordinary in their dorm room when he came back on Tuesday, Derek did notice that Paul seemed more serious. As Cal Poly investigators spoke with him, meaning Paul, all he could recall was that as they were preparing to part ways, Kristin was complaining that she was freezing cold. They couldn't help but notice that not only did Paul have abrasions on his left knee, but he also had a black eye. So when they asked, of course, about these injuries, he said, "Oh, I got this black eye when I was playing basketball with friends on the Monday after the party."
Which friends did you play with? And let's have a little chat with them.
So during this initial phase of questioning, he seemed very calm, he was cooperative, and he readily agreed to take a polygraph test. So when fellow partygoers were questioned, they confirmed that Kristin had been extremely intoxicated at the point in time that she was walking home.
Well, yeah, you said face down and passed out. That is freaking hammered, man. That's a lot.
But this is despite the fact that no one at the party could recall her drinking during her time there. They also indicated that she seemed fine 1 minute and then completely incapacitated the next.
When we were in college at around the same time, couple years after this.
Yeah, we went to college in August of 1997 was our freshman year.
Yeah, GHB was a big thing, liquid G.
Yeah.
And you had some experiences with that.
I did have, yes. So by June of 1996, the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office, they took over the case because it was clear that the university police were not handling this as it should be. Kristin's family felt that they weren't rushing to investigate Paul, who's the last person to have seen Kristin. And of course, detectives and police officers are getting word about what kind of guy this is, but they were very quick to judge their daughter and her behavior on the night that she vanished. Oh, she was intoxicated. Oh, she had consumed too much.
Well, because, I mean, Rachel... Right. Or Cheryl said she was passed out face down. And that's the first thing you think is like, holy cow, she must drink a shitload.
Yeah, of course. We all have, especially at that age, we're not used to drinking a lot. So sometimes it's hard to gauge how much is the right amount
especially
to drink.
As a freshman. You're just starting out and it's like boom, boom, boom. You're all excited. You're at a party. I've had some of those nights, but it's that's the first thing that enters your head, unfortunately. And so what did they mean to the family that they weren't fast enough to look
They
after
just
Paul?
seemed to be dragging their feet on looking into Paul, but they're quickly judging their daughter is the theme that they got. So on June 19th, 1996, when Kristin had been missing for 25 days, police brought Paul in for a second interview that was now audio and video recorded. And unlike in his first interview, Paul seemed really nervous. He was fidgeting in his chair, he was speaking quickly, and he was often stuttering. When asked about what he thought might have happened to Kristin, like you said, Mike, he theorized that maybe she hitchhiked somewhere after I left her and she was abducted by somebody else after we parted ways. So they once again looped back around to this mysterious black eye that he had during his first interview. And the fact that this story was not consistent because, of course, they're talking to other kids on campus and they're starting to hear different stories.
And that's basic investigation.
So fellow basketball players had told authorities Paul had just shown up on Monday with this black eye, and he certainly hadn't gotten it from them.
Well, it's good. I was hoping they weren't like, I didn't really notice if he got hit. Maybe he could have taken an elbow, but it's like, no, we saw the black eye.
When he showed up, he had it.
Yeah.
And while he told one friend it happened when he was pushed at a party, he told another he had no idea even how he got it. So the story that he now seemed to be settling on during the second interview was that it happened while he was changing a radio in his truck and he struck his eye on the steering wheel. He claimed that he lied because he didn't think they would believe the injury occurred on the steering wheel. And he argued that it really wasn't a lie. It was just a fib. It was just a white lie.
Okay, a white lie, a fib, a lie. Those are all the same.
So when they broached the subject of a polygraph test, because of course during the first interview, he's like, oh yeah, of course, I'll take one. Now all of a sudden he's balking and he's saying that he'd have to talk to his parents first. So it was at this point in time when he entered the interview and he asked for a lawyer. And this is the last time law enforcement interviewed him in relation to Kristin's case. It wasn't until 5 weeks after Kristin vanished when law enforcement investigated finally Paul's dorm room for any incriminating evidence.
What day was this?
This was in the summer.
Wow.
Like, campus is empty at this point in time.
That's terrible.
So put this picture together. You've got all these people around campus saying he's a effing creep and he's the last person. He's trying to hug me as we part ways. You know, it's this perfect storm situation. He's got this beautiful girl incapacitated. Odds are this loser probably took her back to his dorm room, which was empty because his roommate was out of town until Tuesday. Why wouldn't his room have been looked at before that point in time?
Yeah.
That's bizarre. So it's summer break, the dorm is empty, and his room has already been cleaned by Cal Poly Housing Services. So when cadaver dogs were brought in on June 29th, 1996, 4 separate dogs from 3 different handlers alerted on Paul's former dorm door in room 128. It was closed and locked when dogs went bolting to this door.
Wow.
So each dog was brought in separately, and the handlers were not informed as to how the others had, alerted or reacted during their respective searches.
I should hope not. It's like, oh, just so you know, the dog's alerted to that door. Like, do we even need to say that?
Right. So according to one of the handlers, her dog gave the strongest alert that she's ever seen her do. Once inside the room now, the dogs alerted multiple times to the left side of the room, which was Paul's side. The dogs targeted the mattress, a desk, and a garbage can. They had no interest whatsoever in the right side of the room, which was Derek's side of the room. And again, this is in Santa Lucia Hall. So despite this, though, nothing concrete was found in Paul's room that definitively linked him to Kristin's disappearance.
Yeah, because it was all cleaned.
So here's another thing, too. The windows, at least moving forward in the years, they popped open, like out from the bottom. So some of the kids that lived on that first floor would actually move in and out through the window rather than walking through the main area and down the hallways, which actually is a hell of a lot faster.
Yeah.
So you can put your imagination to use. Because he's so close to the ground floor and right near a street there, he could have easily just slid Kristin's body out of the window. And the dogs also paid attention to the window as well.
Interesting.
Right. And maybe into the back of a truck.
Yep.
So although they fully believe that he was absolutely involved in whatever happened to Kristin, they didn't have enough evidence to make an arrest. The FBI had also gotten involved. They offered $75,000 reward for information that would lead to finding her. And then this other guy named Terry Black, this is a man from the Delta area of California, he offered anyone with definitive information about Kristin's whereabouts a $100,000 reward, which brought it up to $175,000.
I can tell you, if I was a member of Kristin's family, if this Paul Flores was anywhere in the public, I would try to find him and have a baseball bat and smash his kneecaps, like just every few months or every few years. Just find them and smash them.
They can't do that. They have children at home. They have a son and a daughter that's grieving the loss of their sister. They can't take a baseball bat and club Paul Flores.
Not in bright day. You go like looking around. I'm sure he goes out at night sometimes and you just beat him sometimes, like smash him in the ribs and stuff. That would definitely happen.
Their goal is to find out where their daughter is.
Well, he'd still be alive. You break his ribs every once in a while.
So at the time of her disappearance, Kristin was wearing a gray crop t-shirt, black surfing shorts, and red Puma athletic shoes. She had recently dyed her blonde hair dark brown. Paul, like Kristin, was a 19-year-old freshman at Cal Poly, but this is truly where the similarities end. Unlike Kristin, he struggled to make friends of any kind in high school as well as in college. It carried over. Many people just really felt highly unsettled by this kid's presence. It earned him the nickname Chester the Molester and Scary Paul because he was frequently touchy and highly inappropriate with girls. While studying food science at Cal Poly, his grades were very poor, and he spent many of his weekends drinking alone in his dorm room. And although he was only 19 years old, he was a really heavy drinker. In December of 1995, this is 5 months before Kristin vanished, a female student contacted the San Luis Obispo police after an intoxicated Paul climbed the trellis to her balcony and refused to leave. 6 weeks later, his driver's license was suspended after he was pulled over for speeding, and then he failed his breathalyzer test. Kristin's family was growing very frustrated at the lack of progress in her case because, of course, they know this asshole did something to their daughter.
No doubt.
1 year after she vanished, the sheriff told the local paper that if Paul Flores didn't tell them what happened to Kristin, they didn't see them being able to complete her case. So to her family, it's like, okay, so if Paul Flores keeps quiet, he just lives for the rest of his life forever, and forever we live not knowing what happened to our daughter. That's how this is going to go?
Right. What are we doing? Is that it?
So in October of 1996, Paul, his parents, and others were subpoenaed to testify before the San Luis Obispo County Grand Jury, but no charges were filed. The Smarts refused to give up on getting answers from Paul, as Denise remained relentless in seeking justice. She was not going to just let this go away, because when your baby girl disappears and you know this sick, disgusting person is at the hands of whatever happened to her, you think you're just going to sit there and let your life go on and nothing happens to this kid?
God, no. My whole life's mission would be to get him something to happen to him.
And they were just really hoping, because they did believe that Paul's parents absolutely played a role in the disposal of their daughter's body.
Are you effing kidding? And that's what I was wondering.
Yes.
With the, when they were brought to trial, or not to trial, whatever. They had to speak, whatever you said.
Subpoenaed.
To speak. It's like his parents. I wonder if they were just trying to, if he said something to them and trying to get the words out of them. But if they helped with the whole thing, that is nuts.
So here's the thing. He didn't have a car on campus.
Right.
So how do you dispose of a 6'1" girl's body by yourself?
Well, when you said his truck or something, I was like, does he have a truck?
Well, his parents don't live far from campus.
That's crazy.
So the Smarts fully believe that Ruben and Susan, Paul's parents, absolutely had some role, if not both, one of them, in the disposal of her daughter's body.
Well, some people are going to have a kid that's going to be screwed up, right? Sometimes it's just going to happen, and you expect, okay, the kid's, unfortunately, something went wrong in his brain when it was being created, and whatever. We did our best, right? We're trying to raise him. But when the parents become involved in trying to cover up stuff, that is extra, extra bad. And if I am Kristin Smart's family, I'm going after the whole family.
Right. And that's what they were doing. And they were trying that maybe they would have some moment of consciousness. So what they were doing was they were sending photos of Kristin to the Flores family in hopes that their conscience would prevail and that they would break and give them questions like, our daughter, you are parents, you have children, you should have a heart for us. We don't know where our baby is. But that wasn't happening.
The community needs to come together and just make the Flores family life living hell. Smash their windows with rocks and stuff, and just wherever they live, just make sure that their lives are ruined.
The following month, Stan and Denise filed a $40 million wrongful death lawsuit against Paul, and the alleges that he murdered their daughter at Cal Poly. They later added the university as a defendant, accusing campus officials of failing to keep their daughter safe. When Paul was deposed for the Smart civil suit in January of 1997, the only thing he would confirm on tape was his name. He went on to invoke the Fifth Amendment, 27 times, refusing to even confirm his address or the fact that he was a Cal Poly student at the time that Kristin disappeared, even though we know that for a fact he's enrolled at the school. Ruben and Susan Flores, who were also deposed, denied that their son was involved in Kristin's disappearance and indicated that they played no role whatsoever because we have nothing to do with it.
Why do they think Ruben and Susan had something to do with it? Do we know yet?
Again, at 6'1", you can't get rid of a girl's body easily.
Yeah, but they have to have more than that.
And there's also talk about a phone call that came through and things like that.
So there's probably, you have more to tell me?
Yeah, but a lot of it doesn't come out until later.
Yeah, no, I get it.
So they just believe that there's no way this idiot 19-year-old was able to dispose of a girl's body by himself.
And he had no friends. So.
And he has no friends whatsoever. It's likely he called his parents. If not one of them, both of them, they don't know. So when Kristin vanished, Ruben and Susan Flores were separated and they were living apart. This is something that investigators weren't even aware of, so they didn't immediately get a warrant to search Susan's home. 4 months later, when they attempted to reconcile, Susan rented out her Arroyo Grande home on Branch Street and then moved back in with Ruben. It wasn't until 2 months after she went missing that they finally searched the family home at 710 White Court in Arroyo Grande, where Paul had been living with his father, Ruben, at the time. When they did, they brought in no cadaver dogs or a forensics team, and they also didn't look into any of the family's vehicles because, again, the suspicion was he called his family and they helped move her body. Since Paul didn't have a car on campus when Kristin vanished, the assumption was he had help disposing of her body. And in the months that she vanished, one truck was traded in, the other was reported stolen. That's a little suspicious. That's actually a lot suspicious. In 2011, this is 15 years after she vanished, when no progress had been made in Kristin's case, the new sheriff, Ian Parkinson, vowed to get answers. So he ordered that Kristin's case be reevaluated, hoping that maybe a new set of eyes would catch something that was initially missed. Throughout this time, 96 interviews were conducted, 23 search warrants were issued, and 258 new pieces of evidence were collected. In 2019, a man named Chris Lambert felt inspired to create a podcast that focused on Kristin's case. He realized how few people that he spoke with knew about Kristin's case. They often confused it with Elizabeth Smart. This is the 14-year-old girl who was abducted from her family home in Salt Lake City, Utah on June 5, 2002. After 9 months of being raped on a daily basis and held captive, thankfully, Elizabeth was rescued by police officers and safely returned to her family. So in September of 2019, Chris released his first episode of his true crime podcast, which was titled, Your Own Backyard. The first episode was titled A Face on a Billboard. Rather than having an investigative background, Chris was a musician and a music producer. But he grew up in the area, so he had always seen Kristin's face plastered on a billboard because he'd been about 8 years old in 1996 when she went missing. And it was really the fact that so many people were like, Kristin Smart, what happened to her? It sounds maybe familiar. He was like, I got to get the word out about this. This is friggin' ridiculous that this Paul Flores is just
walking around, skating
free in life.
And he will do something else to some other girl.
Doing God knows what in the background. So according to Kristin's siblings, Lindsay and Matt, throughout the many countless conversations they've had with Chris and the time they've spent with him, they basically have come to view him as a sibling. His coverage about Kristin's case reignited interest, and it played a pivotal role in finally catching her killer. As the podcast grew, Chris was able to coax previously reluctant witnesses who refused to cooperate with the police to speak with him. He even spoke with witnesses who had never been questioned before. The show was a tremendous success, with the first episode getting over 75,000 downloads on the first day of its release. And because word spread so quickly, several people felt inspired to call in with new information. Chris's second episode, which was titled The Only Suspect, focused on Paul Flores as the center of Kristin's disappearance. He encouraged his listeners to come forward with anything that could either challenge or confirm him as a suspect. He highlighted that not only had he been the last person to have been seen with Kristin, but he came to the station for his first interview with this mysterious black eye, as well as the fact that he told many stories as to how he'd gotten it. After the episode was released, several women emailed allegations that Paul had a history of sexual misconduct.
Oh, big surprise.
Unsurprising. It was, they're claiming that he was known to assault women who were intoxicated. It's
Weird.
What he did. Those who had attended high school with Paul also came forward to discuss his inappropriate interactions with girls, which of course carried on to college. More and more witnesses emerged after episodes continued to be released. A former Australian exchange student attending Cal Poly in 1996 reported seeing Paul and Kristin struggling near the area of where she was last seen. Another woman named Mary Lassiter, who also reached out to Chris, She told him some highly suspicious things.
So why didn't these people talk to police, or did they? Because that's kind of bullcrap.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know.
Oh, now you're like coming out of the woodwork, and now like I hope these people, I'm going to assume they told the police this. Hopefully.
Yeah, I don't know why they wouldn't have. So this woman named Mary Lassiter, she rented Susan Flores's Branch Street home in Arroyo Grande in October of 1996. This is 4 months after Kristin went missing. This is when Susan and Ruben were trying to reconcile their marriage, and she moved back in with him. Now, I will tell you, Mary did get in contact with the police.
Well, there's nothing like a plotted murder that'll bring two people back together, right? That's
Can you
crazy.
Imagine? So Mary first became aware of the fact that Susan's son was the prime suspect in a young college woman's disappearance because postcards that were meant for Susan continued to arrive in her mailbox. The messages urged her to cooperate with police and have her son come forward. I assume these were sent by the Smarts. So shortly after she moved into the home, she was washing her car out on the driveway, and she noticed something glinting on the ground, and she realized that it was a silver and turquoise women's earring that was lying next to her left front tire. And she's realizing that this earring matches the necklace that Kristin was wearing in some of the billboards that are posted around town.
That's insane.
So, of course, Mary gave the earring over to police. This is something that
the university police?
No, I think at this point in time, it was the San Luis Obispo police. And the Smart family was not notified of this, and they reported that it was missing before it could ever be logged as evidence. And this would have been so freaking damning had this actually been tested, if it was proved to be Kristin's earring, because then you know for sure she was at Susan's property at some point in time. So yeah,
just another police screw up.
The police lost it. So Mary is now sleeping in the master bedroom, and she was awoken every morning at 4:20 a.m. by the sound of an incessant beeping, and it sounded like it was coming from a digital watch alarm. The sound seemed to be coming from the backyard, which was all concrete other than a couple of planter boxes that were filled with soil. Shortly after Kristin went missing, Susan had cut out these big chunks of concrete in her backyard, and she filled them with soil to act as planter boxes. Actually, in one of Paul's interviews, he said that he wanted to leave so that he could help his mom clean up the concrete at her house. Although Mary searched the backyard on numerous occasions, hoping to find the source of this beeping, she was not successful. After the passage of several months of this happening every morning at 4:20 a.m., the noise finally stopped, which likely meant that the batteries, and whether it be a watch or not, had died.
That's, can we just pause on that a little bit? That's crazy. Everybody's thinking this is possibly Kristin's like watch or something. Like, that's crazy.
So even more, when Chris is telling Denise about this, because of course Mary reached out to Chris, she was in shock because her daughter worked as a lifeguard at the university's rec center, and she set her alarm for super early every morning because she had to be at the pool by 5 a.m. 4:20 would have made sense for her to set her alarm clock.
So that's exactly what I was going to ask. Did she have some reason to be up that early all the time? So wait, Chris is Kristin's mom?
No, Chris Lambert is the person who's making this podcast.
Oh, got it. Sorry.
So Mary Lassiter
reached
called
out to Chris.
in. Yeah, and of course Chris is telling Denise what happened.
Yeah.
And Denise is like, oh my gosh, Kristin had to be at the pool at 5 a.m. every single morning.
So that's, oh my God. And this is just in the backyard somewhere. Yeah. That's so it's like she's right there, like fine, or something's right there.
Right.
Something.
So it's really suggesting that Kristin and or her belongings were buried in that backyard.
And how did the family, while they were living there, not hear that at 4:20 in the morning every morning? It sounds like it was pretty loud. I mean,
yeah. I mean, she heard it from in the house.
Yeah.
So, and another thing is when someone is in a police interview and they're being questioned for potential murder and they're saying they want to leave to clean up the concrete at their mom's house.
Red flags everywhere. Red flags. Hey, anytime there's concrete and dirt involved after somebody's murdered, you got to stop and look at things.
Right. Exactly. And the fact that the trucks were one's traded in and one's reported stolen at right around the time Kristin goes missing. Highly, highly damning.
Like, how can you assholes not close this case?
Susan's house wasn't searched until March of 1997. This is 10 months after Kristin disappeared. And when it was, nothing was found. When authorities came back with a search warrant 3 years later on June 19th, 2000, although their warrant allowed them to dig up the backyard, deputies chose not to excavate, which was a crushing blow to the Smart family.
My God, like, why not, right? Like,
why not?
There's maybe budgetary reasons, I don't know, but like, you have the ability, that's the hardest thing, to get the approval to go ahead, especially in California. I'm sure it's like very hard to get approvals on certain things.
So Mary was evicted in March of 1997. This is only 5 months after she started renting Susan's home so that Susan could move back in with her former coworker and her boyfriend, Mike McConville, because her marriage with Ruben was once again not working out.
Yeah, and now Susan's probably hearing about this, be like, we got to make sure everything's good.
So she still lives in that home on Branch Street to this day, but her boyfriend, Mike McConville, passed away on July 11th, 2025. A former colleague of Susan Flores also spoke with Chris about something he remembers after Memorial Day weekend of 1997. Apparently, Susan was complaining about this middle-of-the-night phone call that had woken her that caused her husband to leave the house. Now, they were living apart at the time that Kristin went missing, but it sounds like maybe they were dabbling.
Some canoodling.
Mm-hmm. So it's possible that they were together on Memorial Day weekend and Ruben got a phone call.
Sure, having a couple beers and, maybe drugging up the old lady just like a son might do. Allegedly, I don't know. This is just stories. I don't know anything.
So, it's possible that middle of the night phone call was Paul calling his dad saying, I need your help. Another witness who came forward as a result of Chris's podcast was this woman named Jennifer Hudson. She was a woman who back in 1996, she was 17 years old and she was at her boyfriend's house in San Luis Obispo. Apparently he had a skate ramp in his backyard and she was just there watching him skate. And Paul, who she had never met before, was also there. The radio was on and there was a public service announcement about Kristin's disappearance. And Paul turned to them and basically admitted to killing Kristin. He said that she was a DICK tease and that he got sick of her shit, is what he said to them.
Was he drunk at the time?
It doesn't sound like it. I mean, possibly, who knows? It wasn't mentioned. But he's also really socially awkward, and maybe he just thought it would make him sound cool. I don't know.
But doesn't he not want to be arrested? That's not. She's the only one that says that happened?
Yeah. So Jennifer was stunned when he went on to say that she was specifically under his skate ramp on his family's property in Huasna. Now, that would be something she wouldn't have known. Now, they didn't live there at that point in time when Kristin went missing, but sometime during the 90s, he and his family had been living at this 21-acre rural property that was due east of their current home in Arroyo Grande. When satellite imagery was later used in the late 1990s or early 2000s, they confirmed that there was a large half-pipe skateboard ramp that existed on that property. How would this woman have known? He, A, had a property at one point in time in Huasna, and B, there was a skateboard ramp there.
Well, I'm sure.
If he didn't say something.
Yeah, well, I'm sure he talked about the skateboard ramp, probably. I mean, that's how he was there. He talked about the skateboard ramp, just, the stories might, I don't know if the other part happened.
So it wasn't until 2021 when authorities focused a large-scale search on the Huasna Road area. The wooden skate ramp had long been disassembled at this point in time and removed, but Kristin's remains weren't found here. Jennifer said she was so unsettled by what Paul said that she didn't speak out about it because she was convinced that if he is going to abduct and murder a girl on campus, where there's a lot of people, what could he possibly do to me?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't believe the story personally.
Regardless, police issued a search warrant for Paul's San Pedro home on February 4th, 2020. This is the same day that similar searches were happening at his parents' two homes. After they seized all of his electronics, they found evidence that proved what everyone already knew, that Paul was a sexual predator.
No kidding.
So on external hard drives, there was this folder labeled Practice, and investigators found not only child pornography on this hard drive, but also horrific homemade pornography that depicted Paul sexually assaulting and sodomizing women who were drifting in and out of consciousness. One of the women appeared to have a red ball gag in her mouth. There were also Google searches on his computer that included real drunken girls drugged and raped while passed out. They also found 2 prescription medications that could be used absolutely as date rape drugs. According to an anesthesiologist named Dr. Owen Shea, these 2 water-soluble drugs are both in the opiate family and each cause narcosis, especially when taken with alcohol. The mixture would also cause memory loss and amnesia and could absolutely be used in a date rape type situation. 30 women came forward to describe allegations of sexual misconduct against Paul, some of which suspected they had been drugged after they woke up in his house with having no recollection as to how they got there, how their clothes had gotten off.
Who's the doctor giving him this stuff?
I have no idea how he's getting. Who knows? I mean, this anesthesiologist, he's just commenting on these drugs. He has nothing to do with the prescriptions.
Yeah, I know.
He could have bought them as street drugs. Who knows?
Yeah.
So at least 4 of these women alleged that he raped them. On March 15th and 16th of 2021, investigators dug up Ruben Flores' Arroyo Grande yard at 710 White Court and excavated beneath his deck. So his deck was one that had like latticing around it. So they went into the latticing and dug underneath it. They also utilized ground penetrating radar. So behind the lattice work of the underside of the deck, the radar signaled this 6-foot by 4-foot void that actually looked like a coffin on this radar.
Okay.
And you could tell it had recently been filled in. So as they began digging and reached 18 inches down, they found what appeared to be staining that was consistent with human decomposition. After obtaining soil samples, human blood was detected, but by this point in time, the blood was too degraded to extract any DNA sample to definitively tie it to Kristin.
Well, let's dig it up anyways and find out what's going on.
Right. Well, they did. It was empty. It had recently. So it was a 6-foot by 4-foot void.
Okay.
But they could tell based on how the soil was, it had just recently been filled in. And this soil contained components of human decomposition, including blood, and fibers of clothing were also found that matched what Kristin was wearing when she vanished.
Okay.
So with this evidence, 44-year-old Paul Flores and his 80-year-old dad, Ruben Flores, were arrested on April 13th, 2021. It's kind of interesting. Kristin went to the party on my birthday, and they got arrested on your birthday, April 13th.
Good.
So this is nearly 25 years after she vanished. So this asshole, this sexual predator, this lunatic monster got to live his life for 25 years.
Rapist, pedophile.
So after obtaining soil samples, so it's very definitive that odds are Kristin was there at some point in time. So while Paul is being charged with first-degree murder that was committed during the course of a rape, and no bail was set for him, Ruben was charged as an accessory after the fact with his bail set at $250,000. In May of 2021, this is 1 month later, Kristin's family filed a lawsuit against Susan and her boyfriend, Mike McConville, for assisting Ruben Flores in moving Kristin's remains following a search of his Arroyo Grande home in February of 2020. The lawsuit was initially filed against only Ruben, it was initially filed against only Ruben on April 22nd, and then it later amended to include Susan and Mike. And the reason why this happened, it was based on a witness who said they saw Ruben, Susan, and Mike working under Ruben's house in the middle of the night on or around February 9th, 2020. This is only days after investigators served a search warrant at Ruben's home. And neither Mike nor Susan were ever charged in relation to Kristin.
That's crazy.
And of course, Mike died in 2025.
Yeah, randomly, huh?
So someone said they saw them doing something under that deck in the middle of the night, right after a search warrant was being prepared to they were going to come, and they knew we're going to find something.
That sucks that they knew about it and were able to do something.
Exactly.
How'd that happen?
I don't know. Who gives a heads up?
Right.
It's stupid. So evidence came together to paint a picture of Kristin's last moments. On Friday, May 24th, 1996, she finished her classes early in anticipation of the holiday weekend. When she called her parents at about 5:30 p.m., they weren't home, so she left them a voicemail. She sounded really excited about hearing the good news about some previously missing biology papers. Of course, this is the last time they ever hear their daughter's voice. At about 8:30 p.m., she met up with 3 of her friends, and a 4th friend drove them in a truck to an off-campus house for a gathering. Of course, that party was a bust. So wanting to stay out longer, Kristin suggested that they all go to this nearby party on Crandall Way, but Margarita, she just wanted to get back to the dorms, and Kristin went alone. She was dropped off a couple blocks away from the house on Crandall Way right around 10:30 p.m. During the party, Kristin introduced herself as Roxy. This is a nickname she often used for herself. So after she was found lying unconscious in the yard, she was escorted back to her dorm by Paul Flores. And he likely led her back to his own dorm room, knowing that he had it to himself until Tuesday. He knew that Derek was going to be out of town. And, he did this rather than taking her back to her own dorm room because, of course, Kristin isn't in her right state of mind at this point in time. She's vulnerable. She can be led somewhere she doesn't want to be. But even in her intoxicated state, when he attempted to rape her, Kristin fought back, striking him, causing a black eye and scratches to his knee. As the struggle escalated, Paul killed her. But because we've never found Kristin's remains, we have no idea how she died. One would imagine he probably strangled her, is what I would guess. When he called his dad in a state of panic, Ruben Flores quickly drove to campus, and with Paul's help, they moved Kristin's body, likely initially to the home on White Court in Arroyo Grande, where they buried her under the deck, of his house, and then relocated her belongings, including her digital watch, to Susan's home on Branch Street. Her body was then moved multiple times over the years to evade searches. Investigators found the 6-foot by 4-foot anomaly under the deck that very clearly resembled what a casket would be in at this home at 710 White Court. This is 12 miles south of campus at Cal Poly. Soil samples that were extracted from this location tested positive for human blood, while fibers that were found in the soil were a match to what Kristin was wearing. Biological evidence indicated that a body had been buried there for an extended period of time, while forensic excavation shows that it had been dug up and moved. Both Paul and Ruben pleaded not guilty, and they were tried together, but they had 2 separate juries that were present at the courtroom in Monterey County, which I found interesting.
Yeah, one for each, huh?
They sit and listen to both cases, but they're each making their own decision based on that person.
Makes sense. Efficiency, I suppose.
So this started on July 18th, 2022. The prosecution pointed out that Kristin had been last seen with Paul, and throughout the investigation, every single lead pointed straight back to Paul. There was no other suspect. It was Paul.
It's like a joke.
2 women known as Rhonda Doe and Sarah Doe came forward to testify about passing out after drinking something that Paul served them. They awoke to Paul having sex with them without consent. And this is likely what happened to Kristin. He probably gave her something at that party. Each witness from that party on May 24th, 1996 testified that Kristin had been really incapacitated that night to the point that she was struggling to walk. And this is despite the fact that no one recalled her drinking. And again, it was an on and off switch. She was fine one moment, she was passed out in the yard the next. So this says she was likely drugged. He probably put something in her drink, and he did this so that he could take advantage of her in her incapacitated state, because this was his MO. This is what he did.
Absolutely disgusting, reprehensible.
Can you imagine being a person who has to have sex with someone that's comatose because you're such a slime?
And also you're into it. Like if you're listening to this and you're into like girls or guys or whatever being drugged and all that stuff for you to have sex with them, then probably look into that and get some help. And maybe, don't talk to humans anymore and lock yourself in a room and don't feed yourself or give yourself any water, and whatever happens.
Yeah, let nature take its course.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
It reminds me of the movie The Holiday, and in that part, it's cute. She's like, "Did we have sex last night?" And he's like, one tends not to take advantage of one in a, what does he say?
When they're comatose or
comatose. She's like, comatose? So the point is, like, in that movie, Jude Law's like, no, of course we didn't, because you were like basically comatose.
And naturally, it should be a huge turnoff, right? Like,
Of
so if you're with
course.
somebody and they're just like sloppy, it's like, okay,
We're not
let's
gonna
get
do
you to
this.
bed. Yeah.
Because when someone is that intoxicated, they can't give consent.
Right. There's no connection there. It's not
None.
like you're both into each other. That's part of the fun of everything,
No.
right? And some people just aren't made that way. And Paul's one of them.
Paul's stories were also inconsistent during the 2 police interviews in a lot of cases, or a lot of regards, like where he left Kristin. Why did he have a black eye? And meanwhile, cadaver dogs signaled to the presence of human remains in his dorm room.
Everything but hard evidence. Like all the soft stuff is coming together.
So prosecutors believe that he murdered Kristin after an attempted rape in his dorm room on Saturday morning, May 25th, 1996. The Smart family were present at each and every day of the trial, and they will be forever thankful that these victims had the courage to come forward to testify as to what Paul had done to them.
Yeah, thank God.
Kristin's classmate and friend, Stephen Fleming, testified that although he did not know Paul by his name before Kristin went missing, he certainly knew of his face and he knew of him.
I knew him by Chester the molester.
He was aware that Paul's presence just made everyone in the dorm, especially females, feel very unsettled, uneasy, uncomfortable. You know, like he's just this creep that lurks around. It's like, oh, here comes scary Paul. Here comes Chester the molester. Mm-hmm. He'd also seen him lingering around Kristin's room, despite the fact that he didn't live in that building. He really had no reason to be there. He didn't have a solid group of friends because he made people feel really uncomfortable.
Was he mentally handicapped or anything?
No, I don't think so. I think he's just deranged and he's a sexual predator.
He's saying about his bad grades and stuff, and just, I don't know.
He was obviously coping with his demons by getting hammered in his dorm room by himself.
Yeah.
Most of the time, he was alone in his room when he was getting hammered, probably to try to quiet these demons that were inside of him, because in the darkness of night, you can't escape the truth. And that's what I always think in these cases. When someone's blatantly lying or saying, I'm innocent, and you're like, asshole, no, you're not. In the darkness of night, you know you're guilty. You know you want to have sex with girls who are basically incapacitated because you're such a effing troll that a girl wouldn't want to have sex with you in her right state of mind, or you're just turned on by a comatose person, which either way is despicable. It's like, obviously that's how he was coping, but no, mentally he was sound.
And Paul, like, to release your conscience, just admit it, man. I mean, we know, everybody knows you did
guilty.
It. Just
what
say
a friggin' joke. So Jennifer Hudson, also testified about her interaction with Paul in 96 when she's 17 years old and they were at that skate ramp in the boyfriend's yard. And he said, her remains are buried at my parents' property in Hosanna. So despite the mounting evidence and witness testimony, Paul's defense attorney, Robert Sanger, argued that the case against his client was so weak. He pointed out that there were no eyewitnesses to any crimes against Kristin. Her body had never been found, and evidence was only speculation rather than proof. As far as Robert Sanger was concerned, Paul had simply escorted Kristin as far as his dorm that night, and then he went to his, she went to hers. What happened in between, he doesn't know. Sanger also introduced this ridiculous idea that Scott Peterson was responsible for Kristin's disappearance. This is a man that's serving a life sentence for murdering his wife, Lacey Peterson, who was 8 months pregnant on Christmas Eve 2002 and had been a student on the campus of Cal Poly in 1996 when Kristin vanished.
I mean, he's just reaching for straws at
ridiculous.
That point. It's a California like drama thing. It's like, it could have been him.
It's like Scott Peterson killed his pregnant wife because he was having an affair and he didn't want to have a wife and a child. He wanted to be a single guy. He didn't know Kristin Smart. There was zero evidence that connected Peterson to the case. This idea was just quickly dismissed. After 11 weeks of testimony, the trial came to an end. On October 18th, 2022, nearly 26 and a half years after Kristin vanished, Mike, what do you think Paul was found in terms of this first-degree murder charge?
I think we all can agree here. Paul was guilty, and so was his dad.
He was found guilty. That same day, Daddy, Ruben Flores, found not guilty as an accessory.
I mean, he knows in his heart that he is, and
Which is insane. The friggin' there's a void under his effing deck that's 6 foot by 4 foot. It has human blood and fibers that match what Kristin was wearing. How the hell else Did Kristin's body get there when Paul didn't have a car on campus?
I mean, I kind of get it, right? They don't have enough evidence.
How is
for
that
him.
not enough evidence?
It's evidence
what I just said.
It could have been somebody that buried something, right? You got to look at it without knowing that I guess
like a deer. Someone buried a deer under the deck.
No,
does that tend to happen?
Yeah,
and fibers that matches what Kristin was wearing.
I'm just not super surprised. You're surprised when you read that?
I mean, I just think it's absurd.
Yeah, there's strong evidence, right? But it's not quite enough. Like if there's a hint of possibility that it's not, maybe, I don't know. I don't know.
On March 10th, 2023, 46-year-old Paul was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison, which was the maximum sentence allowed under California law. He will be eligible for parole, after serving 15 years. And if that disgusting human gets out in only 15 years, that is just a terrible thing.
Well, somebody's going to find him and do something bad to him if he's ever in the public again.
So during sentencing, Judge Jennifer O'Keefe called him a cancer to society, saying
nice. I love that.
While he was living free in the community for more than 2 decades, he engaged in predatory behavior against women during his adult life, and he deserved to spend every day of his life behind bars, which I wholeheartedly agree with, because if he gets out in 15 years, I mean, that guy will be like 60 years old. He's 100% going to continue to be a sexual predator.
Yeah, we just have to use common sense. These people will do it again and again.
He's
it's in
not
their brains.
Change.
Right. And as he gets older and less testosterone, maybe a little bit less, but he's still going to want this. Yeah. I mean,
if he had enough gall to sexually assault Kristin and murder her at 19, we know it continued on through the years. We know he had the date rape drugs in his house and the films on his computer that was showing him. I found it interesting too. I Googled, I was like, why was he not arrested for that when they initially found that on his computer? Because he had a bunch of child porn and videos of women that were clearly unconscious, in and out of consciousness, while he was sexually assaulting them. They said that they just wanted to focus on the murder case.
And like use that as part of the evidence too, maybe, and bring it all together. And
I was like, that's weird that he wasn't.
But still, 25 years, right? That's crazy. That's horrible.
The ability, 25 years this guy got to live his life.
Horrible police work.
So although the Smart family felt a sense of relief that Kristin's voice was heard, as well as the fact that there will be no further victims, we hope, at the hands of Paul, they also feel that there's never going to be closure until they can find their daughter's remains and lay her to rest. She's out there somewhere. She's been moved multiple times. Investigators continue to search for her remains, and her case will not be over until she has been returned to her family. In May of 2026, this is just recent, this is 30 years after Kristin went missing, Susan Flores' home on East Branch Street in Arroyo Grande was searched. Now, this is the home where Mary was renting. She heard the beeping. This is the concrete that Paul wanted to clean up where the planter boxes are. So it had been previously searched in June of 2000, but her yard was not dug up at the time, which I think is insane. Like, we're talking about a beeping watch and concrete being poured in this yard. Like, it seems so obvious to search it. So a search that was done on February 5th, 2020 was just limited to the collection of digital devices. So now moving forward to May of 2026, they're using ground penetrating radar as well as excavators. And although they did not find Kristin's remains, compounds in the soil were related to human decomposing body, which would suggest that her remains were there at one time. Are they potentially somewhere else in the yard? Who knows? In the meantime, Paul continues to appeal his case, and he has filed a second petition for his last July citing evidence errors at trial. These were later denied. The Smart family credit Chris Lambert and his investigative efforts, which helped uncover new leads, while, it also ignited public interest in Kristin's case.
Put a spotlight on things.
Absolutely.
It's like when the police are getting pressure and politicians are getting pressure, then all of a sudden, oh, look, we're going to actually look into this because we want to get reelected, make more money.
And this finally led to justice in their daughter's case. To honor Kristin's memory, her family created the Kristin Smart Scholarship to empower other college-bound women to pursue their ambitions in Kristin's name. According to the website, this positive focus allows them to remember the sparkle in their daughter's eyes, the smile that melted the hearts, and the dreams and the ambition that were always on the table for Kristin. She was always thinking of her next goal, the next thing she wanted to achieve. Today, we can remember Kristin Smart as a young woman who always dreamed of something new, something bigger, and something better. She never doubted her dreams, and she always seemed to know the exact steps that she needed to take in order to reach them. She had been only 19 years old when she suddenly vanished after what began as a typical college party. When she walked away with Paul Flores on that fateful night, she was still discovering the person that she wanted to become. Although he may have given people the creeps, no one ever thought that Kristin's life was in danger that night. Kristin's favorite motto was, "Live your life as an exclamation, not an explanation." Although she was denied the chance to live out the years that should have been ahead of her, those words remind us how she always approached the life that she was given. And that is the sad and tragic murder of Kristin Smart. And to this day, more than 30 years have gone by, and we still have no idea where her remains are.
It's so incredibly sad. And you got Paul Flores, who's going to be knocking on trying to get out of jail all the time. And he should just die in jail if somebody can, take care of that.
So what gets me is the fact that damning evidence has now been found in both parents' yards.
And they're both totally
And they're
fine.
both free.
Like nothing ever happened.
Yeah.
So, what's really interesting, I wanted to mention that clearly horrible parents, right? But I think that might be like one of my exclamation points. Like, talk about helicopter parents. Could you imagine getting a call from one of your kids at college and them being like, "I need your help. I just, I got this body. I found this girl that's dead, and they're gonna think I did it." I'm sure he lied to them, right? He's probably like, they're, found this girl. We gotta bury her body. You got to be like, nope, no,
absolutely not. We're going to contact the police.
Yeah, we'll figure this out, whatever. And then once your son's like, okay, I actually did it, and my life's gonna be ruined. It's like, yeah, and then you did this. So to be a good parent, you got to say, yeah, you got to live with what happened.
The consequences of your actions.
Yeah, you did this. So therefore so by doing this, they're horrible parents.
Of course they are.
This is the ultimate helicopter parent that's just trying to take care of things. It's like they freaking murdered a wonderful woman, right? And
someone's baby girl.
Yeah. And the last sign that the parents see of their daughter being alive is a black eye on this asshole's face. That's the worst.
That their daughter punched this guy in the face. So that's the point. Even in Kristin's incapacitated state, she knew she wanted nothing to do with this guy.
Yeah.
And she lashed out and she punched him because Kristin was a really strong-willed girl.
And say all you want about, she was a fighter and stuff. And yeah, but man, they'd rather have her alive than being a fighter, that sucks. It's so sad. And this guy
But she left the evidence on his face, and that still wasn't enough. I don't know. I mean, the fact that this guy is the last one with her, he shows up to the station with this black eye. He's lying. That's a fact that he's lying. It's just, to me, that he went so long without being charged for anything is just beyond.
And so Susan moved out of that house, right? You said?
No, Susan still lives in that house on Branch Street by herself.
So how are people around there just not giving her hell?
So in May of 2026, all the police show up just a few months ago and dig up this yard, and they found components in the soil that were consistent with human decomposition. There was a body in that yard at some point in time, and Susan is still just living her friggin' life.
Yeah, I know. But I'm saying, if you're in the neighborhood, maybe a BB gun is errantly, shot in a window once in a while. I'd be like, wouldn't you want to just make these people's lives living hell all the time? If you live near Paul, or not Ruben or Susan or whatever, I don't know. I'm not saying do anything. I'm just saying I'm surprised. That's all. I would say, actually, for legal reasons, let me say don't do anything, because that's silly and illegal and wrong.
You wouldn't want to do anything wrong like that.
Absolutely don't do anything to Ruben or
Susan.
Yeah, they're just living their lives, okay?
They're 80, they're kicking, they're thriving.
They're good people. They're good
people.
Good Americans.
I mean, you can dig up in our yard. I don't know. Is there human decomposition in there? I don't think so.
There's animals, I can tell you that.
Well, we do have a few pets back there.
We have a story about that. So, but yeah, no, let's go back to Ruben and Susan. Do not do anything to their houses or windows or cars. Don't do anything.
Don't.
That's wrong. You're good people, okay? You're good people. They're just trying to live their lives. They made some sad decisions. Who hasn't made a bad decision every once in a while, right?
But here's my question though. Like when you're suspected of being responsible for relocating bodies, a neighbor says, I saw them in the backyard. They were under Ruben's deck. They were digging in anticipation for the search that was going to happen. There's this void under the deck that proves that did happen. And then we've got the traces of human decomposition in her soil. Like, how is it like, oh, I didn't know that happened and they just put the body in my backyard? Like, how are they free? I just don't understand. Kristin's missing. Her body's never been found. There's this void. There's fibers. There's blood. There's, decomposition in the soil. How are they free? I just don't get it.
I don't know.
So because they haven't found the body. I mean, there's cases that are definitely tried and convicted on no body. And I just don't understand why this one, we know Paul didn't have a truck on campus or a car on campus. We know he couldn't have done it by himself.
And too bad the police didn't act quicker. Otherwise we'd have a lot of evidence and they didn't.
I think that was a big part of this was, the dorm wasn't even searched for like a month after.
And all those cars needed to have been looked at and, checked for cleaning services.
Luminol, blood, whatever it might be.
That's why. That is exactly why. Bad police work.
So I'm guessing again that she was probably strangled to death if I had to guess. Because again, they didn't find blood or anything like that in his room. It was just
he probably cleaned
the cadaver dog that sensed the human remains.
Right. It's a horrible story. Well,
so sad, but the goal is that the Smart family one day be able to get that closure. Is it ever going to bring Kristin back? No, of course it's not. But to know where their baby girl is somewhere out there and then to lay her to rest, they deserve that. And and I hope they get that.
Well, thank you for telling her story. It's important. And maybe someday she will be found.
And maybe Paul will one day have a heart and say, you know what? I'm probably going to be in here for the rest of my life. Let me just tell you where she is.
Yeah, if you want any chance of going to heaven, man, just come out and saying it, right?
Like it's the least you can do.
If there is, if you believe in heaven, hopefully he does. And hopefully he believes in something that will make him say where everything is.
So thank you guys so much for being here, for listening. We do appreciate each and every one of you guys. I know I say it every week, but I mean it.
You do. You're like a broken record.
I am like a broken record. Just come live with me and you'll hear what a broken record I am. I'm like, you guys, you gotta start cleaning up.
You gotta clean. I wonder how many times you say clean. You gotta
clean. Want this cleaned up.
Yeah. Can't you just clean? Can you wipe it down? A lot of wiping down, a lot of cleaning, a lot of vacuuming.
Non-stopping wiping down. It never friggin' ends. I went to sleep with a clean kitchen, woke up, kitchen has like ground beef crumbles all over it.
Why wouldn't it?
Because our son sauteed some ground beef because he wants his protein. I said, never in my life have I seen a person reheat ground beef and make such a freaking mess.
Yeah. It's
like, this is a talent.
You're not cooking. You're just
He's not cooking. He's literally transferring it from one vessel to another and the entire countertop is covered in ground beef.
Well, by entire countertop, she means one speck of ground beef.
No, I mean ground beef, ground beef, ground beef, ground beef, ground beef. It's talent. It is talent.
It's good. We got a lot of talented kids in this house.
We really do.
So thank you for listening. If you love what we do, we'd love your support over at Patreon or Spotify or Apple subscriptions, and just become a member. You got like 200 plus bonus episodes.
We will welcome you into our family with open arms.
Or a free trial. Get the free trial.
Yes.
Do it.
I think on Apple it's 3-day free trial.
Oh, okay. And then
you lied and said a week, but
I think it's a week somewhere. So check it out.
Maybe Patreon is a week. I'm not sure.
I lie.
I leave this technical stuff up to you, Mike.
Yeah, I screw it up sometimes. So you know.
All right. Well, we hope you guys have a great week. Take care of yourselves. Get some good rest. And until next time, bye.